So we are welcome back to class, and this is still the product owner training module 4, lesson 4. Yes, lesson 4. And in this lesson 4, we'll be looking at story mapping. Story mapping. Right, let's jump at it. What is story mapping? And how we do story mapping. Story mapping, where's my pen? Story mapping is a visual illustration, we'll see that in the next couple of slides, of the journey of a product. So story mapping is a visual illustration of the journey of a product. Its features, functionalities from the user's perspective. That's very important, from the user's perspective, for the purpose of prioritizing early value. And that's one of the reasons we needed to deal with prioritization before this class. So story mapping is a visual illustration of the journey of a product, its features and functionalities from the user's perspective, for the purpose of prioritizing early values. Story mapping is a collaborative practice of the Scrum team, and it's used to slice user stories and potential dependencies. So when we do story mapping, it helps us to see what needs to be done first, and it helps us to identify dependencies early. The entire team should engage in story mapping for clear understanding of what needs to be done. It's used to slice user stories or epics and potential dependency. We'll see that in the next slide. This is what we make reference to as story mapping layer by layer. We will see from here what the project or the product itself is. This is your main requirement, the product or the vision, and what is that particular product? Building email clients. That is exactly what we want to do. We want to build email clients as a service. We want to build email clients as a service. So we'll see how that is broken down from epics into features into stories. From epics into features into stories. So let's look at, this is actually what we want to do. Build email clients. That service would have feature to organize email, or what we want to do, though let me use the word feature so that it won't cause some confusion. We want to organize email. So that's the layer by layer. The first thing we want this service to do is to organize email. Another thing we want it to do is to manage email. Yet another is to manage calendar. Still another, manage contacts. These are the things we want the service to do. I do not want to use the word feature so that we won't confuse both epic and features. Now, the next layer, we are now breaking it down. This is what we call decomposition. We are now decomposing further. For us to organize email, we need to be able to search email and also to file email. We can see these dotted lines showing all the ones under belong to this parent. The parent is organized email, and the children here are search email and file email. Same as what we have here. Manage email is to compose email, to read email and delete email. For calendar, manage calendar, to view calendar, create appointments and view appointments. To manage contacts, to view appointments, create contacts, update contacts and delete contacts. So we can see the breakdown from level to level or layer to layer. From what the product is into epic and into feature. When we get to the next level, this is where we now have the stories. Search by keyword. Move emails and create folders. All this will deliver the features up for us. So that's how we break it further from layer to layer. But a key thing we need to understand here, so at this level we have stories, but we also have what we call release, which is very important. And it's called release 1. This is release 2. This is release 3. So in a nutshell, what we see here, this is what we call slicing. In the earlier explanation, we mentioned about slicing. So we can see how while we are decomposing, we are also slicing the entire product into pieces. So this is what we call vertical slicing. We can see the cut from top to bottom. Top to bottom. Somebody was saying that some few years back. Top to bottom. Right? We can see how it's broken down. It's decomposed from the product or service to epics, to features, to stories. However, very important, it's also adding a release. I'll come back to this release in a bit. So this is what we call slicing. And because we slice from top down, it is called vertical slicing. I will explain what vertical slicing means to us in just a bit. Vertical slicing. Vertical slicing, the best illustration I could make for you is a cake. Let's say this is a baked cake. And in this cake, we have chocolate layer, we have vanilla, we have lemon flavor, we have what again? Strawberry, we have the custard layer, and every other thing. Now let's imagine you want to cut a piece of this cake. Then you have a knife. If you decide to cut this cake this way, that's horizontal. Meaning if you cut this way, you take this portion off. What would happen if you do that? The person who eats this portion would only taste one flavor, will not have the benefit to taste the other flavors. You know, we said this chocolate, this vanilla, this is strawberry, this is custard, this is whatever it is. So this is horizontal slicing. But if you decide to cut vertically in this order, and you give anyone this portion, that person would have the benefit to taste every bit of that cake, every flavor in that cake. That's the same thing we make reference to as vertical slicing here. After we've decomposed, we are now releasing in vertical slicing. What that means is that when we decide to release the first one, this is release 1. So the release 1 will contain all this. All this in this block would form release 1. Meaning the user will be able to use some features from organized email, still manage email and manage calendar and also manage contacts. So we are not developing the features one after the other, but we are developing them in layers. So the users would be able to use all of them in small bits per time. So that's why we have release 1 here. So in release 1, we are releasing a bit of organized email, a bit of managed email, a bit of managed calendar, and a bit of managed contacts. In the second release, which is an increment, mind you, you remember what an increment is, a product increment. An increment is now forming these two together, right? So in this second release, you are now having more features from each of the epics being released together, right? And by the third release, the entire product would have been released. So story mapping talks about when we cut, decompose in this order from epic to features to stories, but at the same time we are slicing it vertically. And because we are slicing vertically, each is having a piece of the action per time. That is not the end of it. We would also see how the dependencies would be dealt with, right? We can't do such attachments before the email they want to search, right? So that is some understanding on story mapping. In the next slide, we would then see how all this would also move to the product backlog. So what we have decomposed from layer to layer is what we would then feed into our product backlog and prioritized or in prioritized order. So we move what we have story mapped, decomposed in that same order into the product backlog. So that is all what story mapping is all about. When we get to the practicals, we will see some demonstration on this, which would expand our knowledge further. So that will be the end of this class. We will see again in the next class, where we would be talking about, I think, stakeholders. We'll be talking about the stakeholder. So that will be all for this class. See you in the next class. Bye for now.